All right, let's talk about the future of site reliability engineering because it's going through this huge shift right now. We need to forget that old image of the SRE as a firefighter constantly putting out server fires. The SRE of today, and definitely of tomorrow, is more of a proactive architect, actually designing the reliable systems of the future. Let's dive right in.
For so long, this has been the picture of an SRE, right? The pager going off at 3 a.m., scrambling to figure out why everything's down, and just generally trying to keep the lights on. It's a role that's been totally defined by reacting to problems after they've already happened. And that question, right there, is everything. I mean, with the kind of insanely complex systems we have today, that old break-fix model just doesn't work anymore. It's not sustainable. So we're seeing this massive shift away from reactive heroics and towards proactive engineering.
And that brings us to what we're calling the proactive revolution. And this isn't some small tweak, it's a complete flip of the traditional SRE mindset.
Okay, so look at this. It really lays out the old versus the new. On the left, you've got the classic SRE life, responding to alerts after something's already broken. But on the right, that's the future, using things like AI and automation to predict and solve problems before a single customer even notices. In today's world of microservices and multi-cloud madness, being proactive isn't a luxury anymore. It's survival.
So the big question is, how do we actually make this jump from reactive to proactive? Well, SREs aren't doing it alone. They've got 3 incredibly powerful new co-pilots joining them in the cockpit. That's AI, platform engineering, and FinOps.
Let's be really clear about this. AI and what we call AIOps are absolute game changers. They are the engine that's driving this entire proactive shift. They can take these mountains of data that our systems produce and turn them into insights that actually predict the future.
And this just nails the difference. The old way was, setting a really simple rule. Hey, if the CPU hits 90%, wake somebody up. But that doesn't tell you why it's happening or what's about to break. The new way, with machine learning, it learns what's normal for your system, spots these tiny little anomalies, and can actually predict a major failure hours before it happens. It's the difference between a smoke detector and a fortune teller.
And okay, what about when an incident does still happen? Well, now, generative AI acts like a co-pilot. Instead of some poor engineer spending hours digging through logs, a Gen AI tool can summarize them in seconds. It can find patterns from similar incidents in the past and even suggest the exact commands you need to run to fix the problem. This just slashes the time it takes to fix things.
Now, our next copilot tackles a huge headache for SREs. For way too long, they've been the gatekeepers of reliability, which just creates a bottleneck for developers who are trying to ship new features. The solution? Give developers the power to own their own reliability.
And that's where something called internal developer platforms, or IDPs, come in. SREs are now building these awesome self-service platforms. You can think of them as these perfectly paved roads or golden paths for developers. As long as a developer stays on that path, all the best practices for reliability, security, you name it, it's all just baked in from the start.
So the big idea here is to shift reliability left, making it a part of the development process from day one, not an afterthought. This lets developers focus on building cool stuff and frees up SREs to work on the platform itself, instead of just being a constant bottleneck.
All right, co-pilot number 3, FinOps. Because, let's be real, you can have a perfectly reliable system if you have an infinite budget. But nobody has an infinite budget. FinOps is all about making smart, data-driven decisions about how you spend money in the cloud.
So the SRE of the future really has to master this iron triangle of balancing speed, reliability, and cost. It's not enough to just focus on uptime anymore. You've got to balance that with how fast your developers can move and how much you're spending. This means things like error budgets are turning into cost to reliability budgets, where you're actively managing cost and performance together.
Okay, so we've got the tools. But tools are only half the battle, right? To really be proactive, you also need the right culture, a mindset that's all about engineering resilience right from the very beginning.
This sounds totally crazy, I know. But as our systems get so complex that no single person can understand the whole thing, this is the new reality. You can't just wait for something to break. You have to go looking for the weaknesses by testing them on purpose. And that is exactly why chaos engineering is moving from this niche thing that only places like Netflix did to being a standard part of how we build software. We're talking about automatically and intentionally injecting failures, like just shutting down a random server or adding a bunch of network delay to see what happens. You find the weak spots before your customers do.
And, underneath all of this tech and all these processes, we can't forget the most important part, the human element. SRE burnout is a massive, massive problem. So the whole point of AI and IDPs and all this automation isn't just to make systems better, it's to make the lives of engineers better by getting rid of the boring, repetitive work and reducing that cognitive load of being on call.
So what do you get when you put all of these pieces together? You've got the shift to proactive, you've got these new co-pilots like AI, and this focus on resilience. Well, you get a brand new identity for the SRE.
This quote just sums up the whole transformation perfectly. The job isn't about keeping the servers running anymore. It's about high-level strategy, about designing systems that are reliable by their very nature.
So what does this all mean? The SRE of the future is an architect. They're building the platforms that everyone else uses. They're using AI to see what's coming around the corner. They're championing a culture of reliability across the whole company. And they're a strategic partner to the business. They're not just keeping the lights on, they're designing the entire power grid.
And that's really the question this whole evolution leaves us with. As AI and automation start to handle all the repetitive, reactive stuff that used to define the SRE job, it frees up all these brilliant engineers to focus on a much more interesting problem: building the next generation of resilient, self-healing systems. The firefighter's job is being automated. All that's left is the architect. So the question is, what are you going to build?